Breaking tonight, our researchers are pouring through thousands of Hillary Clinton's emails just released about 34 minutes ago by the State Department. The documents are from Mrs. Clinton's unsecured private email server that she used while Secretary of State. The agency is blacking out any sensitive information that may put U.S. national security at risk, which of course begs the question about why they were on her private email server instead of adequately protected. In this latest dump, roughly 150 emails contained classified information. What? So hours ago, Chief White House correspondent asked the State Department whether Mrs. Clinton violated rules for handling sensitive materials.
Can you say from that podium categorically that Secretary Clinton followed the rules and the law?
I'm just not going to answer that question. It's not our goal. It's not our function in this regard in releasing these emails.
And it's so irritating since there's no good answer. Ed Henry is live in Washington for us tonight. Ed, all right, so we get a 7,000 email dump at 9 p.m. What have we found so far?
Megan, I've got a broad spectrum for you. I've got some serious stuff that goes at the heart of Hillary Clinton's explanations to the American people not adding up. I've got some on the classified nature of the emails, and then one fun one that I think you're really going to like. That's a good tease. Okay, the first one is in June of 2010, Philippe Reines, one of Hillary Clinton's aides, sends an email to Hillary Clinton as well as Huma Abedin, who's CC'd, and it's marked HPAD, as in Hillary iPad, and it says to the secretary, quote, "Your iPad has arrived." Hillary Clinton writes back, "That is exciting news. Do you think you can teach me how to use it on the flight to Kiev next week?" Why is that significant? Remember, March 10th, the United Nations news conference, she said this whole explanation was because she wanted the convenience of one device, her BlackBerry. This clearly shows she's using an iPad as well. There was more than one device, despite that explanation. Now the more serious stuff about classified information. You mentioned 150 of them. Let me give you a couple quick examples. We've found one email that's now been deemed classified by the State Department. The Clinton campaign stresses after the fact. There's a debate about whether it should have been classified in real time. One email about a presidential crisis in Haiti. That kind of email raises questions. Shouldn't the Secretary of State known at the time this was at the least sensitive information, if not classified? Then secondly, the one I'm looking at now is 2 or 3 pages about Sudan. And a top U.S. official writes to all these top State Department officials about some trilateral meetings with sensitive information about Sudan. That's forwarded by Jake Sullivan, a top Clinton aide, to Hillary Clinton, who writes back, "I'm willing to make the calls he requested." We don't know what calls she's talking about because let me show you this page. It says, "Page denied." It's now been deemed classified. This entire page of information we can't see now. And at the time, Hillary Clinton apparently did not realize that this was classified information. Last point I'd make, the fun one I told you about. Cheryl Mills, her chief of staff, sends one out to Hillary Clinton about someone just leaving the State Department, someone who's left, and says there's going to be champagne and cupcakes for this staffer. Hillary Clinton writes to Cheryl Mills, quote, "Is there a backstory?" Funny because even the Secretary of State gets into the office intrigue. When you get that little email saying, someone's left the State Department, someone's left Fox, immediately. Is there a backstory, Megan?
You have been in Washington too long.
Why, you don't think that's fun?
That was officially neither fun nor funny.
You've never said, is there a backstory? I think you're not telling me the truth.
The bar is very low. Good to see you, Ed.
Is there a backstory? Good to see you.
Right? What was I saying? Shannon Coffin is a former DOJ Assistant Deputy Attorney General and former counsel to Vice President Dick Cheney. All right, Shannon, so...
I didn't bring cupcakes.
So she didn't... What a shock. She actually did have more than one device. She had the iPad at the time. She said she was just doing it for convenience. The iPad has email. You can get email on it. So that wasn't true. And now we've got, Sudan, and one just crossed the wire saying she was talking about the the American hikers who were taken into custody by the Iranians in 2009. And there's an email to her talking about a teleconference with the American embassy. I mean, the point is, on and on and on the classified information goes.
Well, let's talk about that Sudanese email, because Ed and I looked at that together in the newsroom. Look, the point about that email is it was characterizing communications from foreign government officials in Sudan about these trilateral talks. Those sorts of communications are necessarily deemed by the President of the United States by executive order to be classified. That is, they're now marked classified, but they were classified when they were written.
They were.
And everyone in the State Department should know that foreign government communications are necessarily classified because the President, in his executive order, says the disclosure of that information is presumed to harm the national security.
Okay, but let's talk about
this. And that's the standard for classification.
That's very important, because her whole defense, I mean, now it's been changing, is I didn't knowingly have anything here. And, you know, the reason is nothing was marked classified while it was in my possession. They may be stamping it classified now, but when I had it, no.
I'll politely call that baloney, because this very nature of this communication, which is sensitive communications from a foreign official that's designed to be confidential, it's born classified. To quote a former official in the government.
Here's the last question for you. The prosecutor who worked on the General David Petraeus case, where he had classified information and he wound up having to take a plea. She came out today and said, there's nothing the same between these two cases, because it all comes down to whether you knowingly engaged in unlawful conduct. We had the goods on Petraeus on that. Can't prove Hillary Clinton knowingly engaged.
And she attached a resume to it so she can be the next attorney general in the Clinton administration. Look, the point about that is that she's just looking at one little statute that has an intent requirement, and I just told you how you can meet that intent requirement in this situation. But there are felony provisions in the federal code that she ignores in her piece that require only a recklessness. And what's more reckless than setting up your own server and regularly now, we know, regularly dealing with this highly sensitive government information.
That is interesting. Shannon, good to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
Well, a new poll from the key state of Iowa puts Carly Fiorina in the top 3 now. Think that earns her a spot in the big debate coming up? Think again. Plus,